Hello everyone, this is Thomas from the company FEVDI. I'm the international sales manager of FEVDI. We are a company specialized in the nuclear decontaminations with chemical solutions. So today my goal is to give you a general presentation of who we are and the different type of contaminations solutions that we have depending on the needs and your constraints. So very quickly regarding our company, so it was created 50 years ago. We are based in the location in Lyon, which is a region in France where we have quite a few several nuclear power plants, and this is a place where you can find many nuclear related suppliers in France. So our company is located in very near to the city of Lyon called Corba, and we had, as I said, 50 years of experience in the nuclear chemical decontamination. In terms of capability, so we are actually producing during the whole year different types of products in terms of liquid. We also have products in gel, and we also have a storage area, so we can produce in advance and deliver to our customer in less than, let's say, 48 hours. So we have a very short delivery time in most of our range of our products. And in terms of certification, so I will probably spend more time about one of them, which is the PMUC. This is a certification based on the technical requirements of the French utilities, EDF, and which can guarantee that our product is actually safe to be used in nuclear power plants. In terms of market, as I said, we are mainly focusing on the nuclear industries. So the customers that we can find in terms of application are actually usually nuclear power plants itself as end users. It could be also research reactor, new fuel facilities, but also spent fuel reprocessing facilities that we can find in France especially, but in also other some countries. Of course, project related to the waste treatment, to the back end, and decommissioning, but also all the research labs that can involve contamination, nuclear contamination, like the glove boxes, but also the hot cells and other equipment. But because we are only actually a manufacturing company, we are delivering products, but we cannot actually apply the products on site. Another type of customers are actually services companies. So they are companies where specialize in decontaminations, but also nuclear maintenance during outage. Those companies also have also to meet nuclear contaminations environments, so they have to do the decontamination first. The nuclear logistic companies also all related to the inspections, and nuclear dismantling companies. In terms of contamination, you can see we are actually divided two types of applications. One is to remove contamination that are actually on the surface of the support, and the other one is fixed contaminations. That means the contamination is actually inside of the material. In that case, we need to create actually erosion to remove a very slight layer of the support in order to remove the fixed contamination. So why do we decontaminate? Well, it depends on your project, but usually the first reason is, of course, to reduce the contaminations in order to facilitate, let's say, for example, maintenance work, inspections, also to reduce, to make easy waste sorting and transportation. There is also, in terms of secondary waste, I will talk later about it, but we do have some projects that can actually generate less secondary waste, and in some cases we can generate solid waste instead of liquid waste. So overall, we of course have, in terms of, we can have a gain in terms of overall cost of a nuclear project for the decontaminations. So of course, depending on the project, the needs, the type of support, we will suggest, of course, the most suitable product for your needs. The first type of decontamination will be the foam. We have one of our bestseller product, which is called Alcatom, which is a kind of multi-purpose detergent, I would say, to remove labile contamination. So one of the most application the principal application we can find in the nuclear industry is actually to do the reactor pool decontamination. So with the product called Alcatom, we can actually generate foam with a foaming gun, and the foam can actually cover after the loading and unloading of the spent fuel. We can cover the wall of the nuclear pool and also the floor, and use simple rinsing water to rinse it and perform the decontamination work. The picture here shows that actually what happens is the foam can actually stick somehow to the support, even on the vertical surface, and there will be a reaction with all the particles, the radioactive particles, but also the greasy substance you can find on the support, to remove through the fact by capillarity through the bubbles that forms during the decontamination. And then we use water rinsing to remove the foam as well as the radioactive particles. So I'll talk about the Alcatom, but there is another type of foam, which is the FEVDI liquid, and we have another one to remove the fixed contamination. I will go back later on this, the Styrimouse. But I just want to emphasize on the label we have from the French utility called EDF, which is the PMUC. In English, I would translate by material and equipment that can be used in the nuclear power plants. In terms of chemical requirements, the fact that our product are labeled PMUC means, first of all, that there is no halogen in our formulation. So there is no fluor, sulfur, chlorine, bromine, iodine. Those halogens are actually lower than 10 milligram per kilo in all formulations. So the reason why is because we have this PMUC certificate, it's actually very safe to be used in the nuclear power plant. There will be no other reactions on the supports, which is usually stainless steel. So it's very important to focus on this. So as I said, Alcatom has a certificate of PMUC. You can see the feature here. Of course, the product is liquid, but as I said, we can actually use the product to generate foam through an equipment. Another product, which is called ALMUS, is actually more efficient than the previous one, the Alcatom one. And similarly, we can spray in the foam. Another property of this FEVDI on the next slide, you can see here, it has the property actually to dissolve the crystallized boron. And this is actually a typical problem that we can find in all nuclear power plants, whatever the technology. And the borated water can actually become crystallized and actually block some pipes. There is a video, the YouTube video link here, where we did two experiments, one with oil product and another one with hot water. And you can see the difference with the 51L. The product is actually, the crystallized boron is actually dissolved, I would say, instantly. Another product also in form is called Cerumose. It's actually two products that we combine each other's during just before to spray through an equipment. And this one has a pH and acidity. It's a very acid product, so it actually can create an erosion on stainless steel. And for example, on stainless steel 316, in 1 hour of contact, it will remove, let's say, 0.3 microns. So it could remove fixed contaminations. And it's also free of ammonia, and of course no allergens, so it has also a certificate, a PMUC certificate. One of the advantages of using foam instead of liquid is actually with in terms of waste, I would say, because with 1 liter of liquid we can actually generate 10 liters of foam, and 10 liters of foam we can actually cover around 10 square meters. So here are the 3 types of foaming product we have. You can see the different features and the characteristic. And here is the different types of equipment that we can use to spray the foam. So for smaller surface, we have a smaller equipment like the laser 10 foam, and for the larger one, we have the own design, the CAMUNI, which is designed by our company. So we custom design according to the nuclear environment. You can also see a demonstration video on this YouTube link. And for the Cerumose, to remove the fixed contamination, because there are 2 different products to be mixed, you can see here with this foaming pump, we can actually mix one drum and the other drum, the Cerumose and the FEVDI mousse nudge, to generate the fixed, the powerful foam to remove fixed contamination. The pump, the previous pump, the CAMUNI, can actually be connected to a pool tool. This is what we call the multi-pool tool, which is actually an equipment with different type of nozzles. We have 4 in the vertical surface, and this is mainly used to decontaminate the reactor pool without getting inside of the reactor pool. So the worker can actually be above the pool, and with the equipment they can just spray around the pool, but also in the middle to remove to decontaminate the flow, and use the same equipment as a rinsing to generate with demineralized water to perform the rinsing at the end of the decontamination. Similarly, we have a YouTube link. I'm inviting you to have a look on this. We can of course perform training sessions either on site or in a facility in France called the Static, where we can find one-to-one mock-up of a nuclear typical reactor pool, so we can do a training in safely with no radiation environment. So we talk about the foam, and there is another process with the same product, the Alcatom, which is a wiping process. So we actually impregnated some towels with the detergent, the very first one I showed to you, the Alcatom, and the towel can be used to also for multi-purpose decontamination. Here's an example of it, to decontaminate soot, ventilated soot, just before removing the soot after intervention. That could be for maintenance or for decommissioning. And we have a larger size, 32 times 60 centimeter, and this one is used to clean the floor, so we can put the towel around the mob, and we can clean the floor or the walls. And we have another version in pale. So the reason why is we realize that it's not very convenient when you are wearing gloves to open actually the previous version, which is the orange bag with a zip. In this format, you can actually just pull off each towels, and it could be quicker in terms of manipulation. Another product which is called AeroFix. This one is actually used to fix the contamination on clothes, and it could be very useful for the decontamination, for the dismantling activities, when the workers are actually wearing ventilated suit, and before removing it, there is a risk actually to generate a secondary contamination on the environment. So the AeroFix actually is a spray that can actually spray on the surface of the ventilated suit and fix all the particles and the contaminations, all the dirt on the clothes, and then you can remove it safely with no risk of contamination on the environment. So we talk about the foam, we talk about the wiping, decontamination, and here's another one in terms of gel. And this one is a very high efficiency gel for free release for metallic waste. So the main purpose is actually to develop a very powerful gel, decontamination gel. So we spray the gel on the surface, as we can see on that picture, and we also remove the labile contamination, but also the fixed contamination, right, creating an erosion on the surface. So we have a different range of products. So we call the FEVDI gel. So we have OX1, 5E, and let's say, for example, the FEVDI OXE. In terms of erosion, we can remove more than 1 micron in 1 to 2 hours of contact on stainless steel or in cornell. And one of the applications is, of course, to decrease heavily the contamination on metallic waste in order to recycle, for example, the metallic waste for free release. We have a membrane pump which was customized to spray the gel. So we are not only chemical suppliers, but we also have a mechanical department to design and adapt some equipment in order to facilitate and to adapt all types of spraying chemical products. So as I said, the FEVDI gel is actually very much more efficient than the foam. The decontamination factor is much more higher. So we can remove at the same time labile, but also the fixed contaminations. Here's an example from a customer that use our product to decontaminate those parts which look like, in reality, chairs. That's why we call chairs. And you can see at the beginning there were a higher value in terms of radioactivity rate, and after 2 decontaminations, the value was so low, below 10 becquerel per kilogram, that they can actually recycle the product and go to the conventional industry for free release. So in the previous gel, it's actually a gel that need to be rinsed with water. So at the end of it, you still have some liquid waste to be treated. In some cases, especially in a confined environment, there could be some glove boxes, hot cells. It will be difficult to generate, to treat liquid waste. So we developed, in partnership with the French Atomic Laboratory, CEA, and also the company Orano, a new type of gel called ASPI-gel, which is actually a self-drying gel. So you can see the different phase on this picture. So we spray the gel on the surface. It gets dried, and at the end of it, we can have some solid waste as particles, like big pellets. Another picture here, you can see the gel which is cracked during the drying process, and at the end of it, we have all the solid waste which can be detached, and if you spray on a vertical surface, you get removed from the surface just by gravity, and at the end of it, you have only solid waste and there is no liquid waste. So there are very good advantages to have this product instead of liquid or foam or gel. Rinsing gel is that there is no liquid waste at the end of the decontamination process, and in terms of cost, it could reduce also the cost of general of an overall decontamination project. So we have a different range of aspi-gel depending also the kind of support. You can see the common one is actually the SPG 100 for the stainless steel, but we have another version for carbon steel, lead, aluminium, and also for the concrete. And depending on the environment, the time contact could be 2 hours if you are a very dry environment. If it's more humid and cold temperature, it could take 1 day to have the gel dried on the surface. So in the same thing, we have an adapted equipment. This one is the PULVE HP3, which is used to spray the aspi-gel. Here's different advantages, as I said, to remove fixed contaminations, and we can generate less waste, so no liquid waste, but also less solid waste. As you can see here, if we use 100 kilos of aspi-gel to decontaminate, at the end of it we have only a quarter, 25 kilo of solid waste. Here's a reference from a hot cell called Isai from CEA. You can see the first picture is actually the spraying process, and the second one is vacuum cleaning, so with a traditional industrial vacuum cleaning. There's also there's also a YouTube link. You can see the whole process. Here's the result of this project. Actually, it's more than 100 square meter hot cell, and you can see the quantity of gel used were 80 kilos, but at the end of it we have only 20 kilos, so parts of the gel were actually dry out, and the decontamination here is on average, let's say 20, so we decreased by 20 times the initial dose rate. And the solid wastes are actually 100% minerals, so it can be stored safely in waste drum. Some of customers just compact the waste in bags and then put in another drums. So depending on the regulation, there are different ways to store the waste. Here another picture and another demo that we perform on concrete. I'd like to check the YouTube video. So now we are talking about another type of decontamination that generates no liquid waste through a peelable protective film. So the Fixer Pro, which is blue, is actually a gel that we can spray on the surface where we can find many particles, radioactive particles, dust, dirt, and it dries, and we can remove just by peeling off. And by peeling off, they're actually removing all the particles and the radioactive particles and the contamination. So we have two versions. One is the Fixer Pro P02, which is used for decontamination, and we have another one called the P03 that can be used also to protect the surface against contamination. Here's a picture here of the two types of applications. So the first one is for the FixaPro P02, and the second one, you can see the different. The idea is actually to spray a layer to protect a clean surface. The parts or the surface can go to a contaminated area environment. It gets contaminated. We can also spray a second layer if the contamination is too high, in order to put in two layers the contamination and then peeling off. And by doing this, we actually have no radiation, no contamination on the surface. We actually protect it with the FixaPro P03. Same thing, we have the dedicated equipment. You can see we also made a YouTube video to demonstrate how to use it. And we have a smaller gun for small surfaces or small parts called the PULVE Ultra 18V. We have adapted this is a commercial equipment, but we have adapted some parts to make sure that it's very efficient to our product. Here's a different advantage. As I say, there is no liquid waste in that case. We're removing the labile contamination, and it can also use as a protection on surface for, let's say, germs, some tooling, some robots, some material that can go in and out of a nuclear environment. Here's some example of CEA doing the testing on different types of material, on carbon steel, on concrete, and making sure that you can still remove easily, can peel off easily the film. This is another case where Rhino actually did a test. You can see on that part, which is coming from a pump, there is an initial dose of more than 1,800 becquerel per centimeter square, and at the end of the decontamination process, you have only 40 becquerel per centimeter square. We have another types of product which is not directly related to decontaminations, but in some cases, especially in the nuclear power plants, you are using very strong paint, and those paint usually need to be removed, either to do some inspection or to put a new layer of paint. So we develop a stripping gel. So we have different types of different versions depending on the types of paint that you have. So the gel is actually sprayed on the surface, and then the paint will get smooth. It will almost dissolve, and then we can easily remove it as a stripping. It's a stripping gel. You also have another product which is actually used to protect some layers. So if you remember, we talked about the Aerofix to fix the contamination on tissue, on the clothes, and this one, the Fixator LP5, which is colorless, or the 6, which is actually in white, the idea is actually to fix the contamination on a metallic parts on the surface of, let's say this is a picture of a drum, in order to make sure that the contamination remain on the surface and will not decontaminate the environment. So you can see this one is the LP5, which is transparent, colorless. You can see here there is one of our past project. Our customer actually wanted to sort different old drums that were stored for a very long time, and the surface is actually contaminated. And the idea is to use the fixating product on the surface to make sure that the drum will not contaminate the environment during the process and during the transportation. Some of the applications that we have for very specific needs, for example, Decontaplast is used to decontaminate the plastics. For example, the PVC you can find in the nuclear power plant could be some helmet, some shoes, some pores, some plexiglass. This one, the FEVDI Solve N5, is actually very good to remove the greasing as a degreaser and the decontamination of the mechanical bolts, where they usually are very greasy parts. And it can dry actually very quickly, so it's not corrosive, and it's considered as a soap. The FEVDI acid AC2 is of course also a decontamination product, but we can also use as a passivation and PMUC passivation. So for a new project, for example, some stainless steel part need to perform passivation, and we all product in a gel state who can actually do the passivation for small parts or some complex shape parts with the gel. This one is called retensive. This product has a very low evaporation rate, and the main application is actually to fill some siphon. You can see here a picture. So in each rooms or areas of nuclear power plants, there are hundreds of nuclear siphons. And because we are in a very dry environment, if you put water to prevent the air coming from the piping to the area of the where is located the siphons, the water can actually be dried very quickly, sometimes in a few hours. And with the retensive, can actually go much longer time, let's say 30 to 60 times slower than the water. So the retensive can evaporate very slowly. You can see one of the risks is, for example, you have a fire in the area A. If the retensive is not filled with water or with other things, what could happen is the air coming from another places, let's say from area B, will still generate air in the area A, so the fire will still be on instead of naturally disappearing. The Nutrium is actually a washing liquid for the nuclear contaminated laundry. So each nuclear power plants are generating kilos and kilos of clothes and textile, and it's somehow contaminated. So usually they are using very large washing machines for special design for the nuclear laundry, and we are supplying the detergent. Just to finish my presentation. So as you know, we have this crisis. We are living in this crisis right now, and as a chemical company, a chemical factory, we decided to use our production tool to also produce hand sanitizers. We have our brand, which is our HYDROGEL. So we are now also selling hand sanitizers to all nuclear customers, but also for the other industries, the school and the hospitals. So our company is still specialized in the nuclear industry, but we can also provide custom-made chemical products. So depending on your particular needs, our team in R&D can design or suggest a dedicated product for your project. So don't hesitate to check our website, FEVDInuclear.com. You can also download